Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our info session today. So I'm Professor Ryan Kastner. I started this program many years ago, more than a decade ago, believe it or not, for me. You guys were just, I don't know, what, in elementary school or something like that, probably, huh? So the program is meant to give you opportunities to build some really cool systems, to apply knowledge that you're learning in class, to learn knowledge about things that you won't learn in class, to understand how to build systems, to interact with other scientists, non-engineers, to build really exciting technologies for them. So generally speaking, what we try to do in the program is give you the opportunity to come in and join a project. All of these projects have many different types of mentors. So we have group leads that are here and you can talk to, and they'll be presenting here in a second. So all the projects will come up, the group leads will come up and kind of describe what the project's about and discuss, what are the needs, what sort of skills do we need for this project, right? And those skills can be skills that you learn. Often those things are skills that you will learn. But if you have those skills, great, but you don't have to have those skills, right? So one of the key things that I want to impress upon you is that most people will not come into these projects and know everything about the projects or will be the perfect candidates for these. The best people that we've had in this program are people that are willing to spend time, that have time to spend, that are excited about them, that are excited to spend time on these projects, excited to learn about the projects, excited to work with other people, excited to go in the field and test things, maybe not so excited to break things, but things will be broken, and fixing things. Certainly things will need to be fixed. So really the big goal here is to have you, just to give you these experiences. And yeah, so what did I talk about? The student leads. So the student leads are master students, PhD students, undergraduate students, so people that have been working on these projects for a few years. I hope it would be amazing if all of you eventually became student leads, and we expanded this program to be 20 projects, which we probably could do. I think we have 20 projects. We have people asking us to do more projects than we have the ability to service. But gradually what you'll do is, if you're successful in the program, is you'll sort of build your way up, right? You'll start out and the leads will give you some tasks, maybe some sort of trivial task. And if you show that you have the ability to do those tasks, that you have the ability to spend time on learning how to do those tasks, then eventually you can take over the project or you can build up another project, and travel to deploy these things. So you'll see that all of these projects are real things that people around the world, from San Diego Zoo, from Scripps Institute of Oceanography, from archaeologists at the University of Texas at Austin. They're all things that these non-engineers have asked us to do. It would be amazing if you, E for E, could come and build us a system that we just put out these tiny little microphones in the wild and you automatically detect all kinds of birds by listening to the sounds, right? That's one of the projects. It would be amazing if you could tell us the status of these mangroves, these decimated mangroves in southern Jamaica, and how to repair them, how to make them come back to life, because they're tremendous sources of carbon sequestration, right? So can you develop technology? Can you develop drones that fly around with all kinds of different cameras, with LiDAR, with multispectral cameras, and take pictures and then combine those pictures into large maps and then automatically classify if there's a mangrove there, what type of mangrove is it, how much carbon is being sequestered here, right? And then do that now, which we did over the last summer, and then do that in a few years after we mitigate things, after we make the mangroves hopefully more healthier, and come back and do that. It would be great if you could develop a sleep tracker for eyes, right? Tiny little primates at the San Diego Zoo, right? The San Diego Zoo is one of the best zoos in the world, and they want to take care of their animals, and they want to know how these tiny little eyes are sleeping at night, right? If we change the environment and enrich it, if we make it darker, if we make it lighter, if we put a little sound machine in there, will the eyes sleep better at night? Will they be more refreshed, right? Can you make a little sleep sensor for us that does that, right? It would be great if you could help us find these snakes and lizards, these endangered snakes and endangered lizards in the Caribbean that we put little radio collars on. And we grab them, we put these radio collars on them, we release them, and we want to know where they went, right? And we can tell them, you know, what their breeding ranges are, how far do the young iguanas go once they're born, right? Tell all kinds of interesting scientific questions. It'd be great if you could build a drone system with a little radio, software-defined radio on it that would fly around and automatically collect these pings that these radio collars are spitting out and tell us exactly where they are, so we don't have to literally walk through different places and find them on our own. Right? So those are some of the examples that you'll hear about in a second. Some of the projects I talked about, these are the ones we're going to talk about today. It would be great for all of them. It would be great if you could figure out with an underwater camera, take a RealSense camera, take a Kinect camera, take some sort of 3D sensor, depth camera, put it underwater, and have these Scripps divers, these professors and citizen scientists, just wave this camera around and tell us, you saw 500 of this type of fish and it was this much biomass. You saw 500 rockfish, vermilion rockfish, and the biomass of those rockfish was, 10 kilograms, right? It would be amazing if you could do that, right? Those are the sort of things that the scientists have come to us, and we've started developing systems for that. So the systems kind of, as you can sort of see, the systems sort of span all of engineering and even beyond that, right? So we do a lot of sort of outreach. We do a lot of, this program started basically as a thing funded by National Geographic. So we do a lot of sort of media kind of things. So we want basically anybody, any sort of skills in the past we have been able to take advantage of, I would say. As long, again, I want to highlight this 1,000 times, as long as you have time and dedication to put into these projects. The more you put into these projects, the more you'll get out of them, right? It's realistically, putting in a few hours a week, you're probably not going to get much out of these projects, right? But if you put in, certainly if you put in 10 hours a week, you will probably get something out of this. You will get something to put on your resume, which will be, employers will want to hear about, right? You will get to travel to these different places around the world and deploy these technologies. You will get to kind of really solidify all of the knowledge that you've learned in these classes, but really build these systems, right? Build these kinds of things and see how good you have it as students, where you're just sort of handed these programming assignments and they just magically work, right? Like these sort of things just don't work in the real world. You can get class credit, you can get, we write research papers, you want to go to graduate school, to master's, do a PhD. Those are the sort of things that will make your application just really strong, right? A publication, a recommendation from me saying you're the most amazing system builder that we've had in Engineers for Exploration, right? We have a limited amount of funding to pay the best of our students. We have summer programs that you can stick around and work over the summer and get paid to work on these cool projects full time. So those are some of the advantages. I think next is just the presentations. So each of these presentations, each of these projects, the student lead will come up and or the lead will come up and talk about what the project is at a really high level, and then sort of the types of skills that we're looking for. And again, the biggest thing is your dedication and your time and your effort that you can spend on these things. That's the 100%, 99% is how much effort you can put into these. That's how much you're going to get out of it, and that's how much we're going to progress as a organization, right? We're going to be doing cooler things. We do cool things because of the students, right? And if you become part of this, like, you will do cool things for sure, right? If you put time into this, you will do cool things for sure. But that is, the most important thing. We've had students that are brilliant, 4.0, and they come in and they try to work 5 hours a week, and they're not super useful for us, and the program's not super useful for them. We've had students that have 2.5 GPA, perhaps less brilliant, at least according to GPA, but they come in, they work 10 hours, 15 hours a week, and they become student leads, and they do amazing work, and they get great jobs. They go into master's programs and graduate school and do things, right? So it's not about what you know, it's not about how smart you are. It's about kind of real life. It's about what you do, right? And I just want to emphasize that, because that's over the 10 years that we've been doing that is the most important thing that I've seen for this program, is that you just have to have a passion and a dedication for these sort of things. So that's the thing to think about. I think we should just get into the presentations and have the student leads come up. The student leads are the ones that you want to talk to about, you know, here's what I want to do, or here's what I'm excited about. What will I do in this project this quarter? What will I do in the project over the next year? How do I become a lead, right? Those are the kinds of questions that you should ask the student leads, because they've already gone through this and they know a lot more about the projects than I do, right? I kind of at the high level just sort of guide things, and it's really the students that are doing a lot of the work. And also Nathan also does a ton of the work as well. So we have Nathan is a former E4E student, now staff at research and development staff that we've convinced to come back and help lead a lot of these different projects. So he's super integral to really getting the projects out the door. It's really easy to kind of get projects to the 95% level, and then it's really a lot harder to get the last 5% so that we can give them to our collaborators and they actually work in the field. It's a big challenge there. And so Nathan is part of the support staff that you get with this program. A tremendous amount of knowledge about everything, about mechanical, about computers, about electrical engineering. And so he's quite busy, but you know, if you can find a bit of his time, he can answer many of those questions and help push those projects along. So, you know, another thing, Nathan's one of our most successful students in E4E, very biased on that because he's working for us now, but you know, maybe someday you can be the next Nathan. God forbid Nathan goes away, you can be the next Nathan. You can come in and do these cool things and travel all over the world and deploy these projects and hopefully have a good time every day. Most days, right? Most days. Yeah. Okay, so that's enough for me. I'm going to stick around and I'm happy to answer any sort of high-level questions. But it's like I said, it's really about the student leads and the leads of these projects. Those are the people that you want to get in touch with, and all the student leads will hang out too, and you know, just tell you like, hey, yeah, it sounds like you're going to have the skills that you could be successful, or here's the thing that I want to do this quarter. Here's something that you can do. Do you want to do that thing, right? Because you know, these projects are not like your classes where, you know, we give you something to do. Is ideally it's due the next day, right? You get it done the next day or the next week. But if you don't get it done the next day or the next week, in many cases, it's not a terrible issue for us. Certainly at the beginning, we're not going to give you stuff that we need to have done at the beginning, right? Nathan gets a lot of that stuff. So if something's due next week and we need to put something in the field, Nathan usually does that or does a lot of that work. That being said, it's really easy as a human, as you know, I'm also this way, for you to kind of just be like, oh, I'll do this next week. And then, oh, I'm busy. Something happened. I got a programming assignment. I got a homework due. I'll do that next week. And then all of a sudden it's final or quarter midterms. Oh, I'll do that next time. I'll do that next time, right? So really dedicating your time to be able to say, you know, I'm going to spend, you know, 5 hours on Monday, a few hours on Thursday, and a few hours over the weekend on these projects. That's how you will be successful in these things, right? So yeah, let's start with IIs, and nice to see you all. This is an awesome program. Like, I wish I had this program when I was an undergrad. This is why I helped start this program, is because a lot of my classes when I was undergrad, I had no idea why I was learning those things. Zero idea. Like, why are you teaching me this thing, right? And I'm not going to tell you, we're going to show you why all your classes are useful in this program, but we'll show you all why a lot of knowledge that you're learning from your classes is valuable in building really cool systems that, you know, honestly are monitoring the environment, you know, saving the world, right? So you can help save the world, right? What better thing to do as your undergrad? What did you do as an undergrad? I saved the world. Right? You should do that. All right.
Thanks, Ryan. Well, so thank you all for coming. My name is Nathan. I'm the staff engineer for E3, and yeah, as Ryan said, I was a student here in the program several years ago. So Sleep Monitoring is a project that we have with the San Diego Zoo, and basically the idea is that the zoo has a number of animals under its care that often don't have similar behavioral patterns to what humans have. For instance, the they're endangered species, but one of the key things is that they're nocturnal, meaning they're asleep when we're awake and they're awake when we're asleep, which means it's really, really annoying to kind of keep an eye on them and see, hey, how are they behaving at night when they're actually running around and we're asleep? They're also on exhibit at the San Diego Zoo in Balboa Park. So, how does the impact of us humans walking around, how does that impact them during the day, right? Because they're sleeping. So, one of the really key things is, how can we actually efficiently tell how these animals are doing? So, overall idea, right, is a number of network cameras. So, the way the eye are set up is they've got their external enclosures, and then what they have in the back is actually a little small nesting box, which they go and sleep in. So what we'd like to do is actually deploy a number of cameras, so a couple right on top of their nesting boxes, and then a couple monitoring their overall enclosures. And that way we can record those, send all that data back to a server, central server, and record all that data. And then after that, we can run machine learning algorithms on that recorded data to see, hey, when are the eye in certain places? What are they doing? What are their sleep patterns, behavioral patterns like? And that information can then be given to the scientists and caretakers at the San Diego Zoo, who can make determinations about, okay, these are things that are working for the eye. These are things that are adversely affecting the eye. And gradually being able to provide better care to that. And then a few years down the road, as we continue to develop these exact systems or similar systems can be expanded. The San Diego Zoo Safari Park has a huge area in the back where they keep hundreds of animals and over hundreds of acres. And so being able to monitor all that and being able to do studies there is super important, and is kind of this larger vision that we have at the zoo to do the sort of embedded sensor networks. So some of the things we're trying to do this quarter, we've got a system up in our lab that we can show you guys all later, or those who are interested. So we'd like to finish building that and deploy a version of that to the Safari Park for testing. We definitely do a little bit more, verification, validation of kind of what we're doing, make sure that what we're doing actually works. And so it's kind of the key skill sets we're looking for, Linux, networking, Python, digital cameras, lighting, and optics, right? We've got, kind of the real challenge here is we're working at night. So, we want to not introduce artificial light, but still want to provide enough light that our sensors can actually see what's going on. So looking at how we can work with IR, how all of our sensors interact with that, and how good quality we can get with that in an embedded sensor. Looking at a lot of 3D printing for all of our mechanical design, and obviously a lot of testing here. All right, so if any of you have any interest in this, come talk to me. We'll have our project leads around the room at the end of this, and we can definitely discuss more about that. But are there any quick questions? No? All right, cool. Well, I'll hand it off to our next project, which is the Automated Acoustic Species ID team.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Perry. I'm a third-year Math CS undergrad. I'm leading the Automated Acoustic Species Identification team this quarter, and I'm here with my co-lead, Sam. Yeah. So what is the project about? Essentially, we're trying to determine biodiversity of birds in environments such as the Peruvian Amazon and other similar jungle-like environments that aren't necessarily always easy to monitor these bird species. The way we do that is with, yes. So the way we do that There are a few traditional techniques such as camera traps and catch and release, but these can be a little bit labor intensive, difficult to set up in an environment. And they're also not very great at actually determining massive amounts of biodiversity in the Peruvian Amazon. How hard do you think it is to get a picture of a bird in the jungle? It's very, very difficult to capture large amounts of data of these different bird species. And there's also various other birds, different species we're also not picking up. Insects, bats, or some of the other ones we talked about. But our focus is birds, mainly just because that's where the data is right now. Yeah, so there's not a lot of, so we're not doing a great job monitoring these species, and climate change is wreaking havoc on our biosphere. So we need to be able to monitor these species, make sure they're doing relatively okay, and they're not, and we can monitor biodiversity loss and hopefully take action against it. So the way we handle this is with passive acoustic monitoring. So we have audio sensors called audio moths that we can place in an environment. They can listen for bird species, and then the idea is we can pick up very noisy creatures, which most of the animal kingdom is quite noisy, and hopefully be able to use machine learning in order to classify and identify bird species in our data set, and then send that off to our collaborators at the San Diego Zoo to do some fancy biodiversity statistics and be able to determine biodiversity loss from that. Yeah. Make sure I get everything. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to talk about challenges. The main challenge with all this is that this data basically does not exist in very large quantities, which makes machine learning very difficult. For machine learning, you have to have some amount of supervised data, ideally, in order to be able to train a classifier. Most of the data sets are heavily biased towards North American and European birds. So we don't have birds necessarily that work with our data. And whatever data sets that do exist are what we refer to as weakly labeled, meaning that they label an entire like 5, 10, 20-minute clip as a single bird species, which makes it very, very noisy for machine learning models to actually learn what kinds of different calls there are in some of the spectrograms you see on the slide. So our research is mainly focused on how do we essentially be able to train these models, given the fact that this training data is very, very difficult to get. Yeah. Our solution to that has been something we call the weak to strong label pipeline, or WTS. Essentially, the WTS, all it's doing is it's making the assumption that if we have a data set where we know birds are in that data set, and we know that there is a specific kind of bird in that audio clip, more often than not, that bird is going to be the primary bird in that audio clip. So we can make the heuristic that if we can determine bird versus no bird, if we label something bird, it's probably that species. It may not always be that species, but more often than not, it might be. So the way we have this setup work is that we have a variety of bird to no bird models that can detect bird in those weakly labeled clips, label as bird, and then we put on the weak label to make it strongly labeled so that we can actually train it. And we've had a little bit of success with it. So down in the corner, I have some of the results that we have so far. You can see that from the ROC curve and the confusion matrix, you don't have to worry too much about what these are just yet, but essentially it's okay, but it definitely can be improved upon. And that's going to be one of the main focuses of this quarter. Yeah. Sorry. Just talk about, yeah.
Okay, cool. So in terms of actual parts of the project, we have two parts. We have PyroNote, which is our manual labeling platform, and we have PHAL, which is our Python package. So PyroNote is web-based. So if you're working on that, there'll be React JavaScript type beat. In order to actually label the bird data that we're talking about, it would be great if there's a platform to do it. So we developed one. Sean did a great amount of work on this. So over this past summer, we had a couple groups come in and label data. From there, we got a lot of feedback. So on there, there's issue work, feature improvement that needs to be done. So a lot of that is user testing, etc. On the other side, we have PHOF feature development, which is our Python package. So that is encapsulating a few open source models that are currently being used for identifying bird calls. From there, we're basically making one-stop shop to use and compare a bunch of different models and standardize it. So you should be able to pass in however much audio you want to use and then get similar results out to figure out what's best for your workflow. So we're using PHA and other models like Open Soundscape to conduct our research work, and this is for separate research purposes. From there, we also have audio visualizations like the spectrograms you saw in previous slides, and like that's being shown in the GIF up there. And it's data processing. All that is in Python, so you're working with pandas and NumPy. You should be pretty familiar with that. And we have other features around there. Come talk to us if you want to learn more about our project. You can see these links later. We can share them with you.
Yeah, so I realized I forgot the skills slide, but essentially it's most of our work for go back a few slides. For the machine learning stuff, standard machine learning and data science libraries in Python. We use a Jupyter notebook with we use Jupyter notebooks, so having skill in that definitely helps. And then for the front end stuff, React, as Sam said, React front end, and then I use a Python backend, which isn't used that often, but it should be fine. And then PHA is mostly in Python. Yeah. So those are the relative skill sets that we're typically looking for this project. Yeah. All right. With that, I'll pass it off to FishSense. And if anyone has any questions, we'll just be in the back of the classroom at the very end of the presentation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris. I am the FishSense lead. So why FishSense? For fisheries, for oceans, it's important to understand our biomass and the diversity of that biomass. So this is video of a fishery, and you can imagine that it's important for fisheries to be able to decide how much food they want to order, and not order too much, not order too little, because you might have spoilage, or you might have or you might not be able to feed all your fish. So that's one possible use case of FishSense, is being able to track these individuals, know how many you have, know health, and things like that. Another possibility, and the possibility that we are focused on, I just don't have super great video of it, is to be able to understand biodiversity in our oceans. So much as other projects you've heard, climate change drastically impacts the biodiversity of our oceans, and we wish to be able to track that, understand how biodiversity changes around coral reefs, etc. So today, what scientists do to understand this is they basically have divers swim some duration of a path. Imagine a 1 by 1 meter box in front of them, and note with waterproof paper the approximate length of the fish that go through that 1 by 1 meter as they're swimming. As you can imagine, this is error prone because you are just basically guessing how large these are, guessing whether or not they've entered within your box. So instead, what if we create a camera? A camera that can go underwater, that can take these measurements for the divers. So now, instead of just guessing, oh, that fish is maybe half a meter, now I can use a depth camera to measure this fish. So this is our prototype camera, which currently uses the Intel RealSense So if anyone knows anything about the anti-real sense, you'll know that that team's been disbanded. So we are in the process of designing a new system and designing a system to replace this. So for that reason and for data. So, oh, sorry. I guess actually here's a diagram with that camera. So you can see that this is maybe a bit cumbersome, but definitely better than having to kind of imagine this one by one box for doing your measuring. So I want to show you kind of a picture of this. So there are 3 fish in this picture. Just to kind of describe some of the difficulties that come into this with optics and whatnot. So just because I worked really hard, here is one of them. There's another one up in this area, but I cannot see it. So problems that you would face working with this project are ones of optics, I am missing a slide there. There should be one more slide in here. It's probably not worth so kind of issues and goals for us this quarter is we're trying to improve our camera system by replacing this intelligence. And as doing that, we are trying to potentially build our own stereo vision pair. Anyone know anything about stereo vision? So the general idea with it is that just as you have 2 eyes, if you have 2 cameras a known distance apart, you can do various math to basically estimate the distance to objects. This is how the old Connect worked. This, along with some other techniques, is how modern vision cameras work as well. So we're looking for this for basically people who have Linux background, people who have backgrounds in optics, people who have backgrounds in C++ or Python and ROS. So here's my email address. Oh, nope, I am one slide too far. Again, my name is Chris, and I do have a second presentation, or a second project I'm going to talk to you about as well. So you guys will see my email address here again in a moment. So I'm also the project lead for the Baboons on the Move projects. So what is this? So scientists are interested in kind of understanding group decision in primates. Since primates share a lot of features with us, they're interested in understanding how groups of primates might make group level decisions. So how do you have a group that's, say, 150 individuals, and how do they decide where they want to migrate from day to day? Especially because they can't talk to one another. So what scientists know is that some animals might buy off in this direction because some know of some resource. Some animals might also buy off in this direction. But eventually, they're all going to end up going in one direction. How does that happen? So we've taken some drone photography over these rocks in Kenya, and are using our technology to attempt to track these baboons in this footage. So as you can see, the higher up that we go here, the kind of harder it gets to see. But so I'm going to skip the rest of this video to go to. No, maybe I'm not. Okay, cool. So same rocks. So as you can see, at this point, our baboons are very hard to see. If I were to stop this, they'd be pretty much impossible to see. They're here, here, and here, along with kind of scattered out throughout the image. This is about 80 meters above these rocks. And baboon, being about a meter long, is about 30 pixels in this image. So the question that the Baboon project then aims to answer is, how do you find the baboons in this image? Knowing that traditional machine learning techniques that these baboons are too small for traditional machine learning techniques to work. And the answer that we've come up with this is to track their motion. So if I apply this motion tracking, you can see that I'm able to track many of these baboons, but in the process, as soon as they stop moving, we lose them. So the goals for this project this quarter is to improve upon this. And ways that we might do that are there are experimenting with some other methods, or doing some form of probability-based estimation. So in that case, for this project, I'm looking for OpenCV. I'm looking for a background in linear algebra, potentially statistics and calculus for math, and some Python, maybe some C and C++, but probably mostly Python this quarter, and maybe CUDA, but probably mostly just Python this quarter. And mostly just looking for someone to help with computer vision. Again, here's my email address. And now I'm going to hand the floor over to Mangroves.
Okay, cool. Hey, everyone. I'm Dylan Hicks. I've been the project lead of this project for I think like 5 years. It's been a while. It's been a long time. I'm also a master's student here. And I'm just re-signed my contract with NASA as a graduate researcher. So do a lot of things. But the main thing that we do in this project is, of course, monitoring mangroves. And the main way, or first off, is you might be asking, what are mangroves? I remember when I was explaining to my mom what I was working on, she honestly thought I was working with mangoes. As a Filipino, you know, kind of eat a lot of mangoes, so it seemed natural to her, but no, we're working on trees. And they are an extremely important species of trees that kind of live around all areas around the world in these tropical areas. And they have a really strong impact. So the first that you might hear, I think Ryan talked a little bit about it earlier, is their carbon sequestration. So global warming, huge issue. We see the effects of it right now all around California with the terrible storms going on. Climate change is a real issue. That's all mainly due to increased carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Mangroves are especially useful at taking this carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. So while certain areas such as, you know, we all know the Amazon rainforest as a huge carbon sink, they kind of suck up this carbon dioxide as a sponge. Mangroves almost act as the same way, but are even more effective. So they can suck up almost twice as much in their roots compared to these other areas. Also, since these mangroves kind of, they're on the coast and they store a lot of this carbon dioxide in the form of peat, so mud. This carbon dioxide is not lost when, for example, the trees burn down or when they're cut and then turn into something else, right? This carbon dioxide is stored very efficiently in those roots. So I think mangroves, I was looking at the statistic, I think they even though they account for like less than 1% of all the coast and total ocean area, they actually suck up around 20% of the ocean's carbon dioxide. So way more than, you know, all these kelp forests, all these other things that you might think, you know, algae in the ocean, they're super effective for that. In addition, like I was saying, storms, all across, you know, typically tropical areas such as one of our main collaborators in Jamaica, big tropical storm wiped away a massive amount of mangroves. But at the same time, those mangroves protected the communities around that area from essentially being wiped out by the storms. So they kind of act as a sponge or a storm break, a natural levee for a lot of these areas. You see them trying to rehabilitate such wetlands in places such as Louisiana, Florida, really helping these areas. Also, you know, they kind of just provide a lot of monetary benefit to the places they come or that they're around, either for fisheries, helping actually feed the fish there, or you know, their other services such as carbon dioxide protection. They all have kind of a dollar amount. So certain areas, they'll provide a lot of funding to rehabilitate these areas. So the main thing that, of course, we want to do is really help in this way with our collaborators and for really anyone who needs it. So the first main thing that we do is data acquisition. So we actually go out to these areas, fly drones, or record satellite imagery so that we can do studies on these areas. So we usually go over there, fly drones for a week. We had one in Jamaica last year. We've had other ones in Mexico. We're planning on going to Jamaica even more in the future. So actually going there and doing the surveying to help actually see how many mangroves are there. In addition, once we get that imagery, it's really machine learning. So computer vision, we have these images and we want to say, how many mangroves are there? How do you do that from an image based on, taken from a drone? You have to actually classify using machine learning to see where it is, how much is there. And that's mainly the research part of the project, is what machine learning algorithms are the most accurate, can get us the best metrics for our collaborators in terms of seeing how much carbon dioxide is in these areas. And also, once we develop these models and all these other things, is how do we actually make it useful to scientists? I think Ryan talked a little bit earlier about taking a project from 95 to 100. We can kind of generate these machine learning models, but how do we actually use it in a way that's useful and isn't annoying for us to constantly be doing, running Python script, right? And actually, the next step is to then develop tools for scientists so that they can use, our machine learning algorithms and actually be able to a lot easier, or in an easier way, get metrics for these mangroves and actually save them, because they are really important. So of course, the main thing, starting out with machine learning development. So we kind of taken these images either with satellite images or satellite imagery or drone imagery, and we want to say this pixel is this size. Is this pixel mangrove or non-mangrove, or is this image mangrove or non-mangrove? And we can decide that to essentially get an area to then kind of measure how much carbon dioxide in this area or is in this area. We also do a lot of different things to help with the data processing of this, such as super resolution and other new things that we're working on. But yeah, it's mainly just a bunch of machine learning and computer vision if you're really interested in that field. So of course, the main things that we use are, of course, Python. Python is almost essential in any data science workflow. We use that along with deep learning libraries such as TensorFlow and PyTorch. That's for the computer vision area. And then just general data science stuff. So if you're interested in normal machine learning, we also use pandas and NumPy for mathematical computation. That's mainly what we do in terms of machine learning. And then the next step, software engineering, taking and making tools for everyone, is really the main skills that we need for that, of course, is web development and machine learning. So the main goal for this right now is to essentially cut out a lot of my work and essentially get this data for our collaborators faster. So essentially, we receive an image, and I have to then go process that entire imagery, which takes a really long time to run on a computer, and then classify that imagery and then give the metrics. So this is the essential goal of this, is to take that one of the steps out, which is the classification, and figure out where mangroves are and how much is there, and essentially automating the entire process, where if a conservation scientist or a marine biologist has an image, they can just plug it in the website and get exactly what they want. No middleman, really easy. So the main skills for this that we need are kind of general web development or machine learning expertise. So if you want front end experience, we have that. There's kind of a full front end to the website. We do need to make it easy for these conservation scientists to use. And then also back end, working on the interconnections between things that not only run our machine learning algorithms, but deliver those results to the website. And then also, if you're interested in DevOps, there is a little bit in that. So, we run this, we previously ran it on Azure, but now we're working to a private server. But if you're interested in things such as, Docker, even like Kubernetes, if you're interested in that field, we're not using Kubernetes, but essentially in actually deploying things, which is kind of a new upcoming field. we have opportunities for that as well. And then lastly, so I've been here a while, but I think I'm going to finish up my thesis this quarter, which means I will soon be no longer part of the project. So we're essentially looking for someone who wants to work with me during this quarter to hopefully lead this project in the future. Of course, it's not just going to be throwing you in if you want to, but essentially, if you're interested in any part of the project and you want to lead something in the future, this is for you. So, if you're interested in machine learning and software engineering, this is a great way to do it. One great part about being the lead of the project is you can work on really anything that you want in terms of the project, right? So our website rebuild, I'm a big part in actually making the back end of that right now. Machine learning, I work on that as well. So you can really work on whatever you want and choose what you don't want. We had a Java labeling project a little bit ago. I did not want to work on that because I hate Java, so I did not have to. So you can kind of pick and choose what you do and do not want to work on. But essentially, if you want to get into leadership or technical leadership at least is probably the best way to actually progress your career. I don't think that many jobs actually want, just a code monkey that types code. They want someone who could actually help their team out, has the interpersonal skills, and could even lead a team in the future. So this is the way to get it. I'm not looking for someone with an MBA, just someone who's really motivated. That's really what would be nice. So as a summary, of course, looking for a team lead apprentice, so someone who can work under me, kind of learn the chops, learn about the project, who to talk to, some technical overview, and kind of lead you in to hopefully being able to lead this project. And of course, machine learning development. So in the development of all of our models, we're mainly looking for Python and any machine learning libraries that you know. So, you don't have to know these machine learning libraries. Interest is honestly stronger than, a line on your resume saying that you know that. But yeah, Python is preferred because we kind of do everything in Python. And also software development, if you're interested in more of the kind of general software development route, that's also for you. So if you're interested, I'll be wherever the team leads are after this, or you can just shoot me an email. Okay, and next up is radio telemetry, I think with Nathan.
So hello all again. The radio telemetry tracking is one of our longest running projects. And basically, how many of you have gone bushwhacking before? A couple of you. How much do you like it?
It takes a lot of energy.
It's a lot of energy. This is what scientists do to actually track animals, is they hold an antenna right in front of them. The animal has a little radio antenna on it, a little transmitter. This antenna they're holding tells them, if you point it around and you point in the direction of the animal, the signal's really loud. If you point it away, it's really, really quiet. That's all I know. So it's in that general direction, and I gotta go bushwhack through whatever it happens to be. And this is what we took, a picture of what we did in the Dominican Republic. All that behind there, you see this nice big cactus, but the rest of this is actually just cactus. So imagine trying to bushwhack through that. It sucks. Moving through that, you're talking a quarter mile an hour, maybe. So that's really, really slow, right? And the value here is, and actually is to kind of go back on that note is, one of the scientists interested here is small animals like iguana hatchlings or snakes. And what we want to see is how far do they move in a day or 2 weeks, and see kind of where their home range is, or where maybe, we know that their home range is here, where do they move to breed? How do those hatchlings disperse, right? And so that's what we're trying to look at here. So, obviously we don't want to try and beat around the bush. We want to instead fly our antenna around over all that brush and cactus so that we don't have to get stabbed all the time. Or what we'll do instead is maybe we'll, instead of flying it over, we'll instead put a bunch of antennas around and see, when they're close to each other, and maybe we can triangulate off of multiple towers. So that's what we're trying to do here. We've got two key main sub-projects at this point. We've got our Arkansas sub-project where we're looking at common college lizards. And there, what we're doing is, we're going to deploy a series of towers, designed to deploy a series of towers, placed around the edge of a predefined area. And our animals are going to be inside that area. And we're going to be using those local towers to triangulate those transmitters throughout that. And the idea here is we're going to get a fix every 10 minutes for all daylight hours over a 2-week period. This area is in the middle of Arkansas, decent ways away from the highway, decent ways away from any other area of civilization. So it needs to be completely self-sustained. Bring our own communication systems in. And yeah, we're trying to, we need to be on for 8 hours, 8+ hours a day for 2 weeks straight. So batteries, reliability, no human in the loop. The other one is our Turks and Caicos project, where we're tracking boas in the Turks and Caicos. And so what we have here is a drone. It actually is a DJI M300 with our custom payload on it, flying an antenna and a software-defined radio. And we'll be flying over the island. It's actually a private island that we get to go to. And we're basically trying to track those and see how fast we can track them and how many boas we can track in a day. Basically, we're racing against the scientists because they want to show that the drone can actually do it faster than they can. We're pretty sure we can, but we need to actually prove it. Otherwise, they're not going to be that happy. And so here, we don't necessarily know where the boas are. We know that this is where we found them yesterday, but maybe they've gone to the other side of the island. The island's not that long. It's maybe a ½ mile wide. Actually, I think it's less than that. This is a pretty small island. So, but trying to go through all that with a small antenna sucks. And so having to be able to fly that is super important. I already talked most about this. So yeah, this is with the San Diego Zoo. So at this point, what we're doing is we've got our system more or less working. We do a bunch of system testing and whatnot. And so we need help with people to help run all the tests. Kind of the key things here are at this point our Wi-Fi reliability tests. And then just running it in the field a bunch of times and seeing what breaks and trying to fix all the things that break, right? And so this is sort of a visual of what that overall system looks like. We've got our ground control station. Actually, that that's the ground control station software that we write on our own, and so that all can always use some work on tuning all that, and then just testing the whole system and finding out where things break and trying to fix those. The anticipated date right now is we're trying to deploy this into the field by the 20th of February, so that's next month. So yeah, we need some. It'd be nice to get some more help on that. Arkansas is the other one that we're working on. And so some of the things here is, one of the biggest challenges is actually having the predefined area, but also being able to go to sleep and wake back up, right? That's actually a huge challenge. Sleep is actually some of the hardest things to do in an embedded systems environment. So how do you, when does the system go to sleep? What is the thing that's going to turn it back on at the right time? How does everything come back on and connect to each other and be at the right state when the time to start operating is, right? How do we synchronize all the operation and make sure that no one station drops off unexpectedly? So that's sort of all the system design challenges that are in this project that are honestly pretty darn interesting. And if you want to really dive into that, it's a really fun aspect of that. So this is sort of a thing, visual. So you see, we actually have our central control station. Might not be a laptop, might be, we don't know yet. And then we'll have a number of towers all around. And actually, the idea is that you have this animal transmitter, and you have to have it within range of at least 3 towers, ideally 4 or more. And you look at there's other things you can do. What we're going to do is amplitude-based localization. So we're looking at the ratio of amplitudes between the 3 towers, and that tells you roughly where the animal is. But if you want to take this on and do some more fancy things, you can GPS synchronize all of your towers and do time-based localization. So you look at what point the signal actually arrives to each of those. And so you're looking at seeing with respect to the speed of light, you know, how fast that signal makes it to the transmitter. So all kind of really cool things that you could do there, and there's other cool things you can do, phase-based localization and whatnot. So if you want to do some, look at some cool research projects, yeah, this is something that you could definitely take on and play with. So yeah, this is sort of another summary of kind of what some of the things we're looking at. The kind of things that we didn't actually add here is we are definitely looking for another couple more people to take on, to definitely start pushing the project forward and take on more of a leadership role in this. So those are some of the other things that we'll be looking at for this project. Cool, and we'll go ahead and hand it off to Smartfin. So.
All right, so this is Smartfin. I'm Anshul. I'm the project lead here at Smartfin. You can see sort of in the background there. And if you've ever surfed before, you know that on the bottom of every surfboard there are fins, or there's a fin or multiple fins, and that's just to help with stability, make it easier to turn in the water, things like that. So what we do here is we take that fin that's at the bottom of every surfboard, and we make it a smart fin, so we call it. So here's what it looks like. We have a picture there, and this would go at the bottom of your average longboard. Fits any standard longboard. And you have a bunch of sensors here, like temperature, like the thermometer, a GPS, an IMU, which measures like acceleration, the magnetic field of the Earth, and the angular velocity of the fin. Right, so we have all these sensors embedded into this fin. So I guess the question you might be asking is, well, why? Why are we doing this? And if you ever see buoys out in the ocean, for example, like Scripps Pier or some other buoy, they're like 2-3 miles, or maybe not that far, but they're pretty far into the ocean, and there's only a handful of them throughout the coast. And that's the primary way scientists collect oceanographic data to study like patterns in climate change, track temperature, things like that. Wouldn't it be great if we had these hundreds of surfers, especially due to the surfer community in San Diego, where they just fit one of these onto their surfboard, go out, surf, and at the same time collect vital data for climate change that we can study, especially data in the surf zone, which is close to the shore, where you can't fit a buoy, it's too big. That sort of data is what we're really looking for, and it'd be really important for us to get that data so we can further our study of climate change. So current effort, you have a little picture here that shows sort of how some of the terminology that people use when they describe a wave of the ocean. What we want to be able to do is be able to measure the height of this wave when a surfer is still in the water. So how do we do that? Well, we know that there's an accelerometer on the aboard the fin. So if we just double integrate that, ideally, theoretically, we should be able to get position, a displacement. So we should be able to measure this height right here. That's just in theory what we should be able to do. But in reality, because of all the noise in the ocean and all these other factors, calibration, things like that, it becomes a really messy problem to solve. And we want to be able to know what the height of the wave is, so we can give them to climate scientists, and they can use it to find relationships between like how the height of the wave is changing versus patterns in climate change, and all this other cool science that they're doing. So one of the things that we could do is we could implement this thing called a Kalman filter. What it does is it fuses sensors aboard the fin. So it fuses the accelerometer, gyroscope, and magnetometer into sort of this one package that can track the height of the wave better. But again, it's really hard to implement that. And if you're familiar with sort of these things that are put on the side there. So digital signal processing is a big one. And in digital signal processing, things like Fourier transforms, if you're familiar with any of that, it'd be a great help for our project. And to go a bit more into that, some of the skills that we are especially looking for, data analysis with Python and MATLAB. There's a lot of data that comes out of this fin, especially because the surfing sessions are so long, and we just have to be able to go through all of these to get ideal results. Reading research papers, there's lots of people have already solved this problem. If you take a closer look at it, but to implement that in the way that we wanted to, considering like all the constraints the oceanic environment puts on the fin, that's what we're trying to do. If you have experience with signal processing, that'd be a great bonus too. And especially if you've worked with Kalman filters before, if you know how they work, and the various types of Kalman filters, that's very highly recommended as well for this project. So if you're interested in any of this, you can contact me. My email is there. You can look up Smartfin to learn more. That link there, and that's just the general engineers for exploration application link. But yeah, I think that's the last one. Yeah.
Okay, so a quick recap, I guess. I mentioned earlier that you can take a lot of the skills that you learned in your classes and apply them. Maybe I should restate that is you will learn a lot of skills that you don't learn in your classes that are super duper important for you as you go into your jobs, you go to grad school, you kind of go to the next step, right? So some of those things, project management, working in teams, writing papers, communicating with scientists, building projects to their completion and not just a programming assignment, building entire systems, right? Those are all the sort of things that when you go out and work at a company, they're not going to be like, here's a little programming assignment that we know exactly works. Get it to work again for us, right? They're going to give you a problem that's going to be like, try to figure out how do this thing, right? And how does it interact with this entire large system, right? Those are the kinds of things that you will learn in working in this, right? You become a team member, you become a project lead. You're going to learn how to work with other people, right? You probably all have done group projects, and you probably, if you've done enough of them, you probably hated them because, you're all working for the same thing. You're all doing pretty much the same objective, right? But you come and work here, you work in a company, you work later as a research team. You're not all going to be doing the same exact thing and doing it 10 times, right? You're going to be on so-and-so does this. I really like this aspect. I want to do this. But then how do I interact with other people, right? How do I make sure the entire system works? And how do I actually get it to run, right? Like that last 5%, that last 1%, that last 0.1% is really hard. But that's what makes a successful startup. That's what makes a successful company. That's what really makes it run, right? So that's what the kind of things you learn. You get a little thing on your resume that says, I built this thing. I was the project lead. I was the team lead on this project. And I guarantee you, because this has happened with almost all of our people, anybody that you're interviewing with, anybody, that you're trying to do research with, any professor will be like, wow, that's really cool. Talk to me more about that. Explain what this thing is, because it's not going to be, look at my GitHub repo and, I solved matrix multiplication really fast, right? Like everybody else in the every 2000 of you CS, for instance, students have done, right? It's going to be super unique, and it's going to put you, give you an advantage to do to the next step. A lot of our group members write papers, research papers, they get published, right? And again, that is a huge thing for graduate school, master's, PhD. You have a paper on your resume, in your application, that is something that makes you stand out, right? Also for just when you go to a company, right? You wrote a technical paper, you know how to write, right? God forbid you know how to write things, right? And explain yourself and talk to other people. That's what this program gives you, right? You know how to talk to people, you know how to do leaders. We're looking for a lot of leaders right now. One of the unfortunate things for me as a person who just sits at UCSD I've been here for 15 years, it's really cool because it's kind of like Neverland, right? Because, you know, you all are staying the same age, not you in particular, but people next year, 3 years, 5 years, I'm gonna be doing this and everybody's gonna be about the same age, but I'm gonna get older, right? So it's gonna be kind of sad for me because I'm just getting older while everybody stays the same age. What does that mean? There's new opportunities, right? Dylan's been around, he's been amazing, right? For 5 years, he's got an awesome job. He's gonna go and do spectacular things, but we need someone to come in and fill those shoes, right? Those big shoes that Dylan and others have come. It should be you. It needs to be one of you, right? And then you'll go out and maybe not 5 years, maybe in a couple of years. Not that. I mean, Dylan started as an undergrad and did masters. He's amazing. But you'll do the same thing and you'll get a job at NASA. You ask Dylan, you know, would have he gotten that job at NASA? I don't know, right? Without this experience. No, probably not, right? So, and just get to do what you want to do, right? And another thing, final thing that I'll say is, starting this quarter, you come in, there's a lot of opportunities for leadership, for filling in positions. I have a class next quarter called CSC 145. It's a project class. We do a lot of these projects in that class. You come in, you do a little bit this quarter, you get set up, you get running. You can take that class. You have to apply to get that class, but if you're doing a project in this, you'll get into that class and you'll get to do that same project in that class next quarter for credit, right? So 145, 237D. So if you're undergrad or a graduate student, you can take that class next quarter. So it's a really, really good time to start getting involved. Okay, so that's my spiel. Talk to Dylan and Chris and Nathan.